Good evening from New York. 35 days before the midterm elections and 2 days before the likely recess of the Senate, it is no longer one lawmaker giving the finger to the majority party. It is now that same lawmaker giving one finger to each party. Our fifth story, Jim DeMint threatening to hold up even non-controversial, widely supported legislation unless it is cleared first by him. And in so doing, giving us a glimpse of an even more obstructionist Republican Party, one that is fully under the command of its Tea Party extremist masters. The South Carolina Senator's warning and demand was sent to the chiefs of staff of all 99 of his colleagues that he would place a hold on all legislation that had not been hotlined by the close of business today. Hotlining is a routine practice in which non-controversial legislation is expedited for a vote. It's used by the leaders of both parties for legislation that has virtually unanimous support. For example, as of this past August, 372 bills had passed the House, many of them unanimously, according to Think Progress. But none of those bills have passed in the Senate. The Senate's hotlining alleviates some of the unnecessary backlog, but Senator DeMint has other ideas, telling Politico.com that his staff has now reviewed 40 to 50 bills that both parties want to clear by unanimous consent before it adjourns this week. Senator DeMint further claims that he is looking for bills that have price tags and are not paid for. A spokesman for Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid responded, quoting, "I wonder what Minority Leader McConnell thinks about Minority Leader DeMint's unilateral declaration. One thing I know for sure is if their conference continues to follow the lead of the junior senator from South Carolina, then the only title that precedes his name or Senator McConnell's name will be Minority Leader." Meantime, Senate Democrats picked their last major battle before adjournment and lost against a GOP filibuster and a handful of defections from inside their own party. The Creating American Jobs and End Offshoring Act failed today. 53 senators supported, but that was still 7 votes short of getting past the now customary filibuster. The bill was designed to reward companies which move jobs to the United States, and it was intended to diminish a particularly ugly brand of outsourcing, as described by Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio.
That is where a company will an industry will close their manufacturing in our country. They'll move their production, build factories in another country, then sell the products back to the U.S. Never have large numbers of businesses and industries done that, to my knowledge, before. We went from 1 million manufacturing jobs 10 years ago. Then during the Bush years, it shrunk to 600,000 manufacturing jobs in this country.
Joining me now, the Executive Director for Democracy for America, Arshad Hassan. Good evening, Arshad. Good to see you in person.
Good evening, Keith. Thank you. Is
this what it looks like? Is this Senator DeMint busting a Tea Party cap on the backsides of both parties?
Well, I mean, let's be clear. The Tea Party has been working hard to take over the Republican Party, so it's clearly a maneuver that allows us to see what the Tea Party wants. And honestly, Keith, it's not so different. Jim DeMint said right here that he is the party of no. The Tea Party, the Republican Party, doesn't matter. He doesn't want anything passed. What this move effectively does is it slows down all legislation in the Senate.
But any senator has the right to do this, including Senator DeMint. Why is this so extraordinary, and why have we not seen somebody do this before, particularly in these, increasingly polarized times?
Well, they call it a senatorial courtesy, but what Jim has done here, Senator DeMint has done, is anything but a courtesy. It's been an extraordinarily discourteous tactic for the American people. The reason this is different is that, well, we do this sometimes, our senators do this sometimes, whether it's to expedite legislation, or occasionally make a fuss about, well, I want this particular piece of pork in my district, or I have an ideological problem with this. What this is a categorical blanket slowdown of all legislation in the Senate.
Is there a point to it other than to show that he can do it?
Well, Senator DeMint revealed early on in the healthcare fight what his agenda is. He called the healthcare fight Obama's Waterloo. All he wants to do, and all the Tea Party, Republican Party folks want to do, is slow down any effective legislation, basically prove that Democrats can't do anything.
Is this some sort of preview for after November 2nd? Because the Democrats may very well retain the Senate, but there will be Republican gains. There's nobody who's predicting otherwise for that. That's not in doubt. Assess this in terms of that. Is it, in fact, some sort of warm-up action, or here's a preview of what life will look like under a smaller Democratic majority or a Republican majority in the Senate?
Well, so here's the thing that I would look for after November 2nd. I want to look for exactly who's winning these races. So, sure, we're going to lose a few Democratic seats. That's what everyone is saying. And it is true that we're not going to lose everything. But I'm going to look at people who are progressive, whether those progressives have won. I think there's still an opportunity for progressives to really make the agenda here. Or if we don't have clear and contrasting, Democrats versus Republicans, really good elections, really good races, then we're essentially ceding this to the Republicans.
The Democrats are left to do what then? If a DeMint can just stand on his hind legs and say all business stops because I say so. Under these circumstances, what is the answer? What is the answer in terms of even dropping the left-right equation out of this? What is the answer in terms of good government if nothing's going to get done because of one guy?
Well, I actually think the answer is that Democrats ought to draw a clear contrast right now till the election as to what the Republican agenda is. Jim DeMint has done us a favor in this regard, and what Democrats can do. Take a look at people like Russ Feingold, who've really drawn a good line in the sand as to what he stands for. Jobs, an economy that works for everyone, middle-class tax cuts. When he indicated that he was in a little bit of trouble in his election, he was able, through Democracy for America and a number of other progressive organizations, was able to get $100,000 worth of contributions in 24 hours. There is enthusiasm on the Democratic side, but what we need to do to make sure this happens is to draw a clear contrast between Democrats, progressives, and the Republican Party with the Tea Party.
They're one and the same. Arshad Hassan of Democracy for America. Great, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Keith.
And